What's up, gamers? It's me, Plips, and yeah, it's been a while since I've done a review video, so I figured what not better to do a review on than the guy that I had a lot of people asking even what it was called, and that is the NRB SLight, specifically the prototype, because I think there are some slight differences from what I've heard with them, but obviously I've only flipped the prototype, so let's just talk about it. First and foremost, this is no longer in production. I'm Not a Real Boy on Instagram is NRB Studios, I guess. I don't know what their handle is, but they now work for Machinewise. So they don't really produce anything anymore. I think the most recent thing that they did make was the Koenig, but I don't know if they're making those either anymore. So these things are still in circulation, but they are harder to find. So, you know, the value or the value of this review is subject to the availability of even getting one of these guys. But I think that this knife is really interesting to talk about right now, specifically because of the current trend going on with shorty krakens. And I think that's because they are sort of the same balance, or at least a similar idea. There's been discussions about how with the shorty kraken, you can have shorter handles, and that's okay, as long as you compensate with additional end weight. And that's why with the shorty handles, you see them, they put the extra squid trainer weights in the bottom to kind of accommodate for that shorter handle length. Obviously, when people are running the shorties, I've seen all the different kraken blades be used on that build, but I feel like usually I end up seeing the Tonto, which honestly is exactly this. If we're talking about looks, I think that this is probably one of the cleanest designs out there. I like this hole pattern. They kind of remind me of Tic Tacs down here. But it goes with a simple theme, with some nice texturing, more of an industrial look. And while I'm not the biggest fan of like the acid wash on the handles, I think that the acid wash that whoever put on the blade, it does look nice. Obviously, you kind of lose the detail of the milling lines as much when it's stone washed. So maybe eventually I get it polished or just remove the etch, but I will say the handles often blend into darker environments, so it's a little harder to see when you're flipping, which is unfortunate, but it's just a style choice. Also, I think this is probably like one of the cleanest Tanto looks out there. It's just simple with a nice little hollow swedge here, or maybe I'm not using the word swedge right, but yeah, it's very clean, but very intricate and detailed. The one thing I will say cosmetically is that the hardware does extend quite a bit on the sides, which it's not a big deal, of course, but it definitely does show up. When we talk about the balance, this also kind of goes with the shorty kraken. I think that this guy is definitely more on the blade bias side. A dude just walked by. It's definitely more on the blade bias side because it is the ultralight, so the milling is pretty significant on this, leaving only these end bits with the titanium. Now, it's not aluminum, it's titanium, so the density is higher, so it's going to hold more weight in what it has. I think if this was aluminum, it would be kind of unflippable. You have the NRB Ultralight, I think, which is aluminum, but it's the trainer blade, and I think that one is also like exceptionally light, but because it's aluminum, the machining is even more pronounced. But you can kind of get away with more of a skeletonized look and whatever performance-wise because it is titanium. So because it's blade bias, it's not like horribly blade bias, but because the end weight, it kind of helps accommodate for that. What happens in flipping is that fans are actually superb. Probably some of the cleanest fans that I've had. Now, I've had a lot of knives with like a ton of tip weight that also fan really well, but what happens is the tip weight kind of makes them less responsive to changing the fan, or the initial startup to get the fan going is also a little bit more of a momentum investment, if you will. Whereas this one, because it's a tanto, more evenly distributed throughout the blade, it's a little easier to get going, and it holds, but it doesn't feel like it's like committed as much to the fans that it does. Certain tricks I can really do the best on this one. So like that fan grab cancel thing to a palm fan kind of thing, I can really only do that with the SLight. I mean, I can't do it with the other ones now that I've practiced on this one, but this one really just lets you do a lot of fans. So those who do enjoy fans, and I think fans are often underutilized in combos, this is definitely a knife for you. The jimping on this guy is there. I don't think it's like particularly bad by any means, but obviously I'm somebody who's pretty persnickety about jimping, and most of the time jimping doesn't do a ton for like keeping ladders and such. I really do like aggressive jimping. Like, I think the best jimping that I've ever had was on my Wraith, my G10 Wraith, because it had aftermarket full liner spacers, or full liners that had much more positive jimping, meaning it stuck outside of the blade, which gave you a lot more to hold on to. So most of the time, I feel like jimping is kind of like not as big of a deal as it's made to be. So it's important that it's there. Some people feel very strongly about jimping on handles. I know that I talked with Pyro about it once when I was in the Discord. And he was saying how like jimping often just takes away the end handle weight. And I think in this one, end handle weight is very crucial because it kind of keeps this blade in balance. Because I don't think you realize when you look at it that this thing is going to be blade bias, but when you look at it from the top down, you see how thick that blade is, and it actually does hold a lot of that weight. So having the additional weight on the bottom does help kind of accommodate for that, and the jimping is taking material out of the bottom, which could be messing with the balance. I don't know if it's that significant of a difference. Obviously, I haven't flipped knives that have both jimping and not jimping. I think a good example of that is like the Kraken. Older versions of the Kraken don't have the jimping on the bottom, and some people say that it flips better actually when it doesn't have the jimping, because the jimping isn't making a huge difference on the Kraken in terms of grip, at least in my opinion. And then it also provides more of that end weight, which some people really think is important to flipping. Obviously, there's certain knives that don't do that, like the Hydro, for example, which is a very controversial knife, and I think part of that is because it lacks end weight. It's kind of the complete opposite of that. But with this guy, I think one other main feature to talk about is the texturing. I love deep texturing. For a couple of reasons. This guy has incredibly deep texturing. It feels like you're holding a gym bar with like the knurling on it, and this is deep. It's not aggressive, it's not uncomfortable, but obviously my tolerance to texturing I think is higher than some others, so take that as you will. But with this guy, I do find that the texturing is just, it provides a lot of grip, a lot of feedback. I know when I'm on this side of the handle versus this side of the handle. And the nice thing with this texturing is that if I ever do decide to get it redone with a nano or something like that, this texturing, you can do a lot in the design. So if I have to sand it down or something, it's still going to have that texturing because it's deep. And if it's cleaned out completely in between the cracks, you can do a base anodization and then polish the tops and then re-anodize those. And then you get like this two-tone look with that texturing. Deeper texturing allows you to be more creative with those different anode patterns, allows you to make more of a custom experience to your knife, in my opinion. So I really do enjoy the feel of these handles. Obviously they're not tapered, and I'm a big fan of tapered handles, but I don't mind non-tapered handles too. And I think these are comfortable in their own right. I think the one thing that this struggles with is rollovers because of the blade bias. So it's not impossible. It's like one of those things that you can learn how to flip this thing, but I think a good example of it is like the cherry picker, for example. If you initiate a cherry picker too close to the pivots, if you're on a handle bias knife, it's actually going to hug to your finger a lot better, and it'll give you the allowance. It'll afford you to do the trick because, you know, the handle bias is going to keep it stuck to your finger more. But if I do like a really close cherry picker to the pivots here, you see it wants to get away from me, and sometimes it just won't be able to make the full trip. Obviously, I've been flipping for a while, so it's kind of hard to not flip right, especially because I don't want to drop into the dirt. But what I notice is that if you initiate your tricks slightly farther away from the pivots, the blade bias isn't actually that bad. You just have to learn how to flip around that. I think the only other aspect that you feel it in is the chaplains. The chaplains, you can't go as tight, you can't go as fast, but obviously chaplains are one of those things that you don't want to be in a combo. Chaplains are something that you shouldn't hold for more than, like, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 rotations, because after a while you're just wasting time. And if you're like doing a chaplain to like prepare yourself for the next trick, that's fine, especially in a freestyle. But I do believe that chaplains they're not as exciting the more you become an advanced flipper. They can open up pathways for other things, and I think that they are fine. Like, I'm not a chaplain hater by any means, but obviously they're going to be less visually impressive for those who know flipping. If you're new to flipping, chaplains are actually kind of tricky. I remember when I learned my first chaplain, you know, and you do like set on your finger, you know, and you do these wide circles and just get a feel for what it's like. But, you know, you get to a point eventually in your flipping where a chaplain is not special. So, like, it not being the best at chaplaining, it's something to take note of. But is it that significant in the larger picture of what a ballast on combo is? Like, I don't know, not really, in my opinion. So, not that bad. Now, I got this guy, I think, for 300, 310, something like that. I can't remember. And for the price, this thing is excellent. The tune is a little bit on the looser side. It's been broken in quite a bit. Sometimes I flip this thing dry, so the washers are going to take a little bit more of a beating. I put thick carbon honey. I put carbon honey thick in this thing because the tolerances are a little looser. If I had a tighter tune, I'd probably put the thin. I'm also almost out of thin, so I've been kind of saving it. But you can hear this thing. On thick honey, this thing, it sings. It's got just a slight little ping. Let me get close to the mic. It's got a little bit of a sing to it, but it's not too crazy. I'm a fan of ringing knives, but this one doesn't ring. But I think that if you ever put a speed channel in it, yeah, it could be interesting. The problem with putting a speed channel in this thing is that it would just be too blade bias. I'd almost wish for this thing to be ever so slightly thinner, just to help accommodate for the lacking weight, because it is flippable. But sometimes if I'm flipping other knives and I pick this thing up, it will feel weird. So I've been flipping this guy basically all week, with my other main being that static reblade on the kraken handles, and they're very two different balances, but I think what happens is when I flip the other one, which is slightly more on the handle bias side, not handle bias, but like neutral with more handle presence, when I go to this one, it feels awkward, and that difference, that feeling of like it getting away from you on rollovers is a lot more noticeable. If it's your main, it's fine, but because it is a slightly different balance profile away from like your traditional ballast songs, it is going to be something that feels weird when you first pick it up. You're going to feel the fans for sure. You're going to feel the fans, but the other tricks, they take a while to get used to. So if this is something that you ever do get your hands on, be patient with it. Ultimately, every knife I think you can learn. You just have to ask yourself, like, where is it struggling, and, you know, try different things to accommodate for that. I think like a trick like the chatter actually surprisingly does pretty well with this thing, because sometimes my chatter, watch me not be able to do it. My chatter, dude, see, it's like one of those things that I don't do the chatter that often, so I kind of suck at it. But sometimes they get stuck doing the next rotation, and I think this one, because of the blade bias, it kind of like wants to run away, so then it gets out of your finger a little easier than on other ones. So this is kind of like one of those rare instances that because of the blade bias that it has, it's easier for me to execute a particular rollover trick. I don't know why I said that so weird. A particular rollover trick that might be harder on more traditional balances. I would say, if you ever do have an opportunity to get this and you like the look of it, it's a wonderful blade. It's a wonderful knife. I really do like having this guy in my collection. Because it's channel titanium, I don't know, maybe one day I'll beat it, but because it's like discontinued, it's tough, you know, because I can't really get another one and finish it up. So maybe if I see another one in the future, I have like my beater in my safe, but that really all depends. I do have some other knives that are on the way, or rather a knife. Should be getting on Friday, but I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to record a video on that, just because I'm going to a family event. But that guy's coming in. That'll be exciting. I sold my rep to a wonderful fellow named Nick. I like the handles, but they weren't playing nice with a lot of blades that I did want to use on that rep. So eventually I will get a rep build, but it's just not on my cards right now. I've been trying to wait for the next Aeon drop by Andrew Myers, because I kind of want to get a fully custom blade, custom design on the handles and stuff. I kind of want to do that because I want to have my collection be smaller. I'm looking to have like 4 or 5 knives, and that means that the existing knives that I have, maybe I'll sell them, maybe I'll give them away, I don't know, because I have some pretty poopy knives, which are great, like the Kraken clone that I have, the V3 one that I've flipped for so long, the inked one with like the scuffed blade. I think that one I could totally sell, but I would only sell that thing for like, I don't know, $15 plus shipping, or like, because like you could tune it up and it'd be fine, but it's pretty beat and whatever. But it's honestly like, if you don't, maybe like $10 plus shipping. It's just because the shipping itself would cost more than the knife at that point, so I'd be just taking a loss by selling it to somebody. But yeah, like I want to have a smaller collection, because I find having a large collection to be somewhat redundant, because you don't end up actually flipping them, which is something that's tough. Something that I also think too with having titanium is that if you're not really beating it, like, yeah, you're still getting value out of it. But sometimes I wonder, like, you know, you get these knives that are made to be more durable, and they don't end up being used, or they don't end up benefiting from one of the main aspects of the material, which is to withstand being dropped, more so than aluminum. Now, I don't think aluminum is really actually that bad when it comes to being dropped. Like that Kraken clone that I have with the static reblade, that thing has been outside for so long, and if I tighten it up, yeah, it sounds excellent, actually. And it's more of like a cosmetic issue. So I think that sometimes people search for titanium with this idea of, oh, it's going to be so much more durable. But then you have the more expensive knife, it's made out of titanium, and you don't actually beat it. But the reality is that the aluminum knives, if you really wanted to have a beater, which I think everyone should have, I just think they're really cool, and it's actually really freeing to have. This garbage truck is very loud. Aluminum, honestly, is good, and aluminum is good, and I think actually shows kind of the character of being beat even more. So that's more of a tangent. But anyways, that is the NRB SLight. Thank you for watching as always. Might be selling that Gaboon. We'll see. But I'll have to do a review on the Gaboon as well. So just stay tuned for that. And as always, thank you for watching. Let's try to do a little combo vid before we go. I haven't really been trying to learn too many new tricks. I've been really struggling with this one right here, like the snap, where you like go over. I just can't seem to get the rotation on it, but like this, where you go like that. I don't know, but that's the one I've been focusing on. So I hope you guys have an excellent week. Drink some water. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.